Hey everyone, back at it again with another greatest of all time argument. So, what I decided to do, I realized that the first two videos, it would take me forever to just get all the points across, and I can't get all the points across, especially with the second video. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it into each different person. So, so for starters, I am doing Isiah Thomas. He's the one of the first person on my two rings. Uh, Starting from two, I'm going to start from rings and go up because it's easier because it's harder to make the distinctions for the people with two rings rather than the people with six or seven. So we're gonna just do it that way, and I hope you guys remember that criteria. So let's get it started. So the first argument that we need to start off with is obviously statistics. First off, I guess I should talk about, for those of you who don't know basketball, very few people know about like history of basketball. Isiah Thomas, full name is Isaiah Lord Thomas III. Also nicknamed Zeke, Tuss, and the Babyface Assassin. That last one I didn't even know. He was a point guard. He was 6'1", 180 pounds, and like I said, he played for the Detroit Pistons. Now, if you look at his overall statistics, so we look at the stats. Total stats, he had finished with 18,822 points. He finished with 9,061 assists, 1,861 steals, 249 blocks, and 3,479 total rebounds. So what does this mean? In points, he's not going to be like at the top echelon of points. All right. So he's not going to be like Kareem or Michael or even LeBron, and he's still playing. He's not even with Wilt or even higher than someone like Tracy McGrady, who had like 20,000 points. He had 8,000 points. I'm just trying to get some. Uh, Sorry, I thought I had this a little ripped up, but I didn't apparently. um, Here it is. All-time stat leaders. uh, so like let's compare it to the all-time lead, his stat line, like his total stat line to the all-time leaders. Let's just say top 10 in points. He's not top 10 in points. He is top 10 in assists, however. He's number 7 in assists. Steals, he's not top 10 in steals. He's not going to be top 10 in rebounds, so we're going to skip that one because I already knew he wasn't going to be top 10, and he's not going to be top 10 in blocks. So the real question is, how does Isiah Thomas get to be on the greatest of all time list? Well, it's really when it comes down to the other categories that we have, because just besides assist alone, which is obviously fantastic, but you can't just rely on his argument to be the greatest of all time alone just based on statistics, because like I said, statistics aren't the end all be all. Oh, but there is a statistical category also the top 10 in, but it's the type of statistical category that you don't want to be top 10 in technically, and that's turnovers. He's actually 7th in the league in turnovers. So there's that. But like I said, he averages about 19.2 points per game, 9.3 assists a game, about 3.6 rebounds. Steals are like 1.2 a game in that area, and blocks is less than 1, so I don't bother to count it. But let's talk about the second. Let's talk about the second thing, the eye test. The eye test, it basically was just me looking over film and judging based on how Isiah Thomas was on the court. He's a very good ball handler. He knows how to pass. He has the vision to pass the ball, which is one of the reasons why he had such high assist ratings. He had an excellent drive to the lane. He knows how to pull up and stop for a quick jumper, or he can finish at the rim with a layup. He also can dish the ball, which is something that Isiah Thomas is known for, drive and kick. Remember, he's played in the 80s, so he doesn't have the same skill set of like a Steph Curry or a Chris Paul. He's very good with his trickeration with his hands. He's very good with the hands on the basketball to whether it's dishing it off, making a layup, trying to grab a rebound, even though he's 5'11", so that makes that even 3.6 assists go up against a big man makes that even more impressive. He has a vertical leap to tap in a putback or to grab a rebound. He has a stop motion where he can just go like this and then come back and make a layup. He is probably one of the best driving kick point guards that we've seen and that anyone has ever seen in back in the 80s. I guess you say he's one of the best. He has a nice little crossover. His game is smooth. And what I mean by smooth is that you rarely see him mess up on a dribble or a shot or he had a little nice crossover. It's not like how AI's was or Curry's is or Chris Paul's is or any of the newer point guards, but it was still good for the time. It got him by defenders. He was able to blow by them with efficient ease. And since he's a smaller player, it makes him a smaller target. So that gives him a very good edge there with the eye test. Main criticisms and failures for Isiah Thomas. Earlier in his career, Isiah Thomas had a hard time. He played with a different coach before Chuck Daly, and I think that some people discount coaches as they discount coaches as somebody that's there but it's not there. But it's more of a symbiote. Sometimes it's a symbiotic relationship because depending on the coach, you may not develop at all, and some people will develop in the wrong way, in the wrong aspect. So in that instance. Before he had Chuck Daly, he was in a pass first offense. So for those of you who don't know, like a pass first offense means as a point guard, all you do is pass first, and then the other person will score, and you would get like high assist numbers. You would have like high numbers overall. The only problem is when it comes to going to the playoffs, that style of play usually doesn't work because the defense will easily pick up on what you do, and they'll just force you to shoot. And if you haven't developed a jump shot, that's pretty bad because then they'll just predict you every moment, every time. And you'll either brick or you'll make it, but then no one else on your team will score and you'll lose. For the first half of his career, he was the dominant ball handler, which he got high assist numbers and he had high numbers overall, but his team never made it past the second round of the playoffs. When Chuck Daly was the coach, they switched the focus from being a pass-first team to a defensive team. Isiah didn't have to be the primary ball handler anymore. He could split the duty with Joe Dumars. And suffice it to say that he took to the role very well. But like I said, early in his career, he was the primary ball handler. He took all the duties on board. Excuse me. And most importantly, another criticism that was always given to him, was it deserved or rather it's deserved or not, you can make up your own mind. But he was part of the Bad Boy Pistons, and that moniker kind of just stuck with him. He may not have been like the most physical person, but he would stand up to you and fight you and do all this type of stuff. This is remember it, guys. This is a league before Malice in the Palace. So a lot of stuff you could still kind of do and kind of get away with, even though they kind of started monitoring better over the years. People wondered why Jordan never got past the Pistons. Most of the reason was because they kept fouling him hard, and they kept trying. It's like they tried to injure him. Like people would say he's this or he's that, but overall, I mean that's how it was with him, and that's one of his main criticism, like him being part of that Bad Boy Pistons team. Like everyone would assume because he was part of that team, he always played dirty, which isn't necessarily the case. Oh, there were some things he did that was dirty, but then again, a lot of teams played that way back in the 80s. Like the Celtics kind of played that way. Even the Showtime Lakers, some of them played that way too, and it was because of how they had to switch their focus. So that's the case. It's funny because I actually put some of the situations in the criticism and failures part. So we're going to skip forward to the accomplishments. Now, this is the part of the thing where it's kind of easy to show what accomplishments are. So he's a Hall of Famer. That goes without saying. A 12-time All-Star. 1984 to 1985 assist champion. He's a 2-time NBA champion, 5-time All-NBA, 81-82 All-Rookie team, 2-time All-Star MVP, and he was the 1989-1990 Finals MVP. So on the 90s Finals MVP, that means he was the best player in that game, in that series, mind. 5-time All-NBA. This is before, I think this is they just count all the All-NBA teams, so they didn't separate them for the references that I'm using. But 12-time All-Star, that's very good. That shows his longevity. I think he would have gotten more had he not had his Achilles torn. Because again, injuries is another thing that counts. He's a two-time NBA champion, and the Bulls kind of ended that streak for them. Assist champion, like I said, he was an assist champion because of the fact that his coach forced him to be the main primary ball handler. But and of course he's a Hall of Famer, and his mentality basically is that. I mean, one of his nicknames is the baby-faced assassin, which means he's a small little guy, but he's also a very small clutch player. Like he was like that clutch focus on that team. Yes, he averaged about 19 points a night. Whatever. The point though is that he made some very clutch shots in very clutch moments. He made some very good defensive plays in clutch moments. And people actually tend to overlook defensive plays. I don't, because of the simple fact that defense can be as clutch as offense. You stop somebody from making a basket that could have won them the game, you basically win the game for your team. So that's one thing. He was always focused entirely on the game. He was a very defensive point guard who could shoot and get his own shot and pass to get another teammate his own shot. He focused on team first. He protected his team. He would go to war with his team. He would fight for his team, especially because of the bad boy Pistons reputation. People would take swings at him because more than likely Bill Laimbeer started something. I hope you know who Bill Laimbeer is, because if you don't know who Bill Laimbeer is, he's one of the dirtiest players in NBA history. That's a totally separate video. But suffice to say that his mentality was fight hard for your team, and the team will fight hard with you, and that's how it worked. And that's how they were able to win 2 championships. They were able to beat the Lakers, and they were able to get those 2 rings. So overall, this is the argument for Isiah Thomas being the greatest of all time. Wait, before that, let me do this. It's also a known fact that Isiah Thomas, in a way, changed the game of basketball, because there weren't a lot of short point guards in the league. Like, there were point guards who are usually between 6 feet and 6'5". Magic was an exception at 6'9", but he was a big point guard, so he could play multiple positions. But there weren't that many 5'11" guys that were doing that well. The only other 5'11" point guard that was doing that well was Spud Webb. And while he's a Hall of Famer, he wasn't like on Isiah Thomas's level. And Isiah Thomas showed that 5'11" point guards are able to produce in the league. Like, shorter point guards can produce in the league. It gave inspiration to Muggsy Bogues. It gave inspiration to Isiah Thomas, the current Isiah Thomas. And it showed toughness. His toughness and resiliency helped them get all these awards. So, in conclusion, this is why Isiah Thomas could be considered one of the greatest players of all time. Not just for rings, but for all the other things that he's done on the court. So this is the Isiah Thomas, his argument. The next argument we're going to go into will be Wilt Chamberlain. So for everyone here, album 1777, saying pay attention for that next live.